Hello true believers and welcome back to Sitetoastonish. I seem to have found myself stuck in the upside down. This is not very good, but while I am stuck here, let me take the time to talk to you about two really weird Stranger Things games. Now, Stranger Things is no stranger to crossovers. It's been in a multitude of different games, as well as a number of mobile games. It even has its own on the Netflix app. But there are two games that were made for Stranger Things that I find to be the most interesting. Those two are two VR games of all things. One is technically not a VR game, it's a VR experience, but fuck you, this is my video, I'm counting it. The first VR game that was released for Stranger Things was released in December of 2017, this being called Stranger Things The VR Experience. Now, this is technically a glorified ad, however, it has some very cool ambience and I like it a lot, so I'm talking about it. In the Stranger Things VR experience for the PSVR, which if you've not used one has about the resolution scale of a fucking potato, I mean seriously, this thing is a hunk of shit. But that aside, you also needed the PlayStation Move controllers, which at this point no fucker had but me. So, with your PSVR shitbox headset and your PlayStation Move controllers, you could indulge in the Stranger Things VR experience for PSVR. Now, I'll walk you through what would happen in this roughly 2-minute long experience. You would find yourself in the Byers household, and a very cool set of scenes would occur where you would pick up the phone, hear someone talk to you. Then a Demogorgon would attack and the experience would be over and you'd get a trailer for, I believe, the second season of the show.
Whatever is happening is spreading.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, why have you included this here? It's barely a game. Why would you do this? Well, firstly, one, because I fucking played it, and two, this second part of this video is probably going to be pretty negative. I have some bad things to say about the second game. So all in all, this is a pretty solid little VR experience. When I played it back when it was out, and now it's delisted, you can't play it anymore, but when I played it when it was out, it was an interesting little game that I thought was very cool, and if you ask me, nails the ambience of the first few seasons of this show, really making the Demogorgon seem fucking terrifying, because you're like 5'2" in this game, and that thing is a whopping like 8 feet. They are scary as shit. And this is before all of this shit with like killing with swords and guns was even a theory in the show. So, when this was released, and when you could play it, it was a genuinely interesting piece of Stranger Things media, one of the first few games ever released for this thing, before even we heard about the Telltale series of games. This was so cool when it first came out. The ambience to it, the feeling, the vibe, the fear was all there, and it really linked well to the show. This felt so cool, placing you dead in the footsteps of a character from the show experiencing the Demogorgon attacking you. And let me tell you, it was cool as shit, even if it was in 480p. Now, while I'm quivering in fear in the Upside Down, this feels like a good time to ask if you guys would be willing to subscribe to the channel. We're dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers, and if you can push me to that mark by the middle of 2026, I would be so elated. If you're watching this video and you like this video, you do all the lovely stuff, comment, like, subscribe, let me know what you think of Stranger Things, I'd love to hear it, and what you think of the short on Stranger Things that I made to coincide with this video. Anyway, let's get into the next game. The second game I have for you today is Stranger Things VR. It was released for the Oculus Quest 3, or the Meta Quest 3 if you're a punk bitch, and is a 2 to 3 hour long experience wherein which you play as multiple different characters. You play as 11, Henry Creel aka Vecna, Billy, and random Rainbow Hands child, who I'm assuming is supposed to be 11. But in this game, you go through both the Upside Down, Dimension X, and the Mind of Max from the end of Season 4, as this game spans from pre-Season 1 all the way to the end of Season 4. So let's get a proper breakdown of this game going. You start the game in Brenner's facility, where you are then swiftly teleported into the Black Void, where you test your powers. After this, you use your abilities to spy on people of Hawkins until you find a Russian spy, because the original reason that these guys were given powers was to spy on Russian spies. After that, you are then transmogged into the mind of Vecna, and as Vecna, you have Shadowbrainer, which is the Shadow, or the Mind Flayer, as most people know it as, trying to convince Vecna to let it take over his body so that it can use his power fully. Something that the show has dabbled with, and the stage show, the Lost Shadow, I think it's called, really delves into. And this game too follows this storyline of the Shadow desperately wanting to have full control over Vecna, and Vecna trying to not let that happen and pull a reverse on the Shadow and be the one that has all of the power over the dimension. So, playing as Vecna, you are morphing Dimension X into what Henry Creel wants it to be, which is a reflection of Hawkins. That is kind of his whole shtick. That's kind of the whole thing that you're doing as Vecna in this game specifically, is going through his memories as the Mind Flayer tries to take over his mind, and trying to control the Dimension X and turn it into Hawkins, turn it into the Upside Down, which now in Season 5 we know that they're two completely different locations, like with an Einstein-Rosen bridge, I think it's called, or a wormhole if you're normal, connecting the two together. But as Henry Creel, you will explore these very cool locations, actually. I really liked the really eldritch vibe of this place, and the almost like non-Euclidean structures. Everything here is really weird, and I really love that. It's so cool to be able to like go around this. His gameplay style is pretty boring, as holding in the triggers you spread his Vecna goo everywhere. You like spawn the tendrils to take over everything. Using the grip button is how you use your telekinesis. Whilst gripping, if you push in the trigger, you will crush whatever you're using, and you can throw that by flinging your hand out and throwing out whatever it is that you're holding. You can also travel using vines, like Spider-Man basically is how that feels in the game. So yeah, for most of Vecna's portion of the game, you will be either teasing young Will Byers, who you do get to play as, but his gameplay is literally just bringing a viewfinder to his face, so I don't really want to touch on that too often, because it's one chapter where you play as him, and he doesn't really do much other than bring a viewfinder to his face and look really weird. So as Vecna, you are corrupting the Upside Down and trying to corrupt all of the people that are affected by the Upside Down in an attempt to get revenge on 11 and the Shadow for trying to control your mind. The next portion of the game is you playing as Billy. You play as Billy, being controlled by the Shadow as well. You send Billy out on his feast, and you sort of control what was going on in between those segments of Season 3, which I think is really cool to see. And I do like this like portion of gameplay where you're driving along. I just think it goes on for much too long, and is frankly quite boring by the 4th or 5th time you've fed someone to the Mind Flayer. But regardless, it's interesting to see those in-between bits. After this, you play as a fully powered 11 from the end of Season 4, where you are then trying to basically remove Vecna's corruption over Max's mind, freeing Max from Vecna's control. This doesn't happen in the game. You do not free Max from Vecna's control. You just sort of save her and she's in the void. A lot of this game tries to cover what is going on in between the seasons, what is going on, the stuff that we didn't see that was shown on camera. So there's like a scene where you get to play as the Mind Flayer for like a minute, where you break into the cabin, the buyer's cabin, from season 3, where like you jab 11 in the leg. That segment is you as the Mind Flayer, and we get to see a reverse of what it was in the show. So most of the stuff in this game is just a reverse of what you see in the show. I think that's really, really cool. But it does do something that I think gives it a big negative, and that is you kind of go back through season 1 with the tone of the current seasons of Stranger Things, which really dampen those earlier seasons. One of the big reasons that I like Stranger Things, the VR experience, is because it sticks very closely to that niche horror vibe that the original seasons of Stranger Things had. Something that is so woefully lost in these new seasons of Stranger Things, and is reflected in Stranger Things VR for the Quest. It just misses a certain sense of fear and, like, foreboding that was present in the original versions of Stranger Things that are just now, to me, completely missing and have been replaced with an overture of whimsy and 80s nostalgia that, while it did feed into the first season of Stranger Things, the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, I feel like it really, really heavily picked up for season 3, 4, and 5. The show is more about being a commodity now than it was about being a proper show. And I think that really hampers this show to an unbelievable degree. And in turn, that affects this VR game, because it is struggling to keep its identity as a horror like experience, having you control these multiple characters, some with telekinesis, some just experiencing, you know, their mind being taken over, and you just keep getting these moments in between the show where you're like, oh, it's this, and it feels like more nostalgia bait, but instead of being nostalgia bait for the 80s, it's nostalgia bait for the show itself. And you could say that it is more like, you know, they're just trying to tie it in super heavily, and that is to a degree what they're doing, but sometimes it does really just feel like we're being popped in the moments where fans of the franchise would most want to see in between the lines. I think it's cool. I just think that being this close to the end of Stranger Things, and it might be over if you're watching this past New Year's Day, I just feel like at this point, before the show is over when I'm recording this game is a very solid representation of the downfall of the show in total. In conclusion, I think both games are pretty solid experiences. They provide 2 very different vibes and 2 very different types of gameplay. So if you're looking for the Stranger Things power fantasy where you are the character who does all the cool shit and you throw the rocks and you take over people's minds and you are the cool telekinesis like individual, that is Stranger Things VR. That's what you're looking for. If you're looking for the hype moments of the show where you get to be in the footsteps of your character, really showing off your big dick swagger, that is Stranger Things VR. That's what you want. If you want an experience that, to me, greater represents Stranger Things as a whole, I think the Stranger Things VR experience on PSVR, that is the one that you want to go for. Unfortunately, is delisted. However, watching it online, you'll probably have the same experience because it is only about 2 minutes in length. But it's a time capsule of what the show used to be. And I think that reflecting on the 2 different versions of this is an incredible way to visually see how this show has warped over time. I think both games are good. I enjoy them both for 2 different reasons. I enjoy the story in Stranger Things VR a lot more than I do in the VR experience, even if I think the VR experience's ambience is considerably better. With that being said, I'm going to worm my way through this weird, fleshy portal and hopefully end my way back home. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, please subscribe. That means you enjoyed listening to me ramble about Stranger Things for 10-15 minutes, which is crazy. And let me know in the comments below what your favourite Stranger Things thing is, whether it be the outside media, the video games, the show itself, maybe it's the merchandise, or maybe it's just the theming and how they've managed to bring back 80s vibes. Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!